We are seeing other headlines that on page 2 of the Standard. Something else here on page 2 of the Standard. No voters card, no bursary. This is according to a member of parliament. Yes? Mavoko MP Patrick Makau yesterday ordered the constituency office not to give bursary to anyone who does not have a voter's card. Surely, how much of a big deal is registering as a voter as opposed to addressing the real issues that we face?
People fight for power, but I think sometimes we forget what is more important than that search for power. It is like we are searching for power for the sake of it. Fred, it is not the duty of Kaluma to go mobilizing voters to register. Our constitution says that is the work of a commission we call the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Now, we have these functional institutions. You have an IEBC whose commissioners keep quiet and only tell you later that over 120,000 were in the register and possibly voted without our knowing who ought not to have been there. And this is being said by a commission coming in after they are gone. So we have institutions which have malfunctioned, institutions which are pandering instead of enjoying the independence we give them. And that is why people are going out. Look at what the president is busy doing. Saw him yesterday, saying, now I order chiefs to be the last authority to confirm whether or not you can be registered to vote and whether or not you can have ID. And you'll go there saying that in central Kenya, you'll go there saying that somewhere you imagine, your word will be heard. Down in our constituencies, and I'm speaking for Homa Bay Town, the instruction being implemented is the opposite, exact opposite of that. Make it harder for them to get IDs, make it harder for them to access materials to process IDs, make it harder for them to get their IDs back in terms of distribution. So what we are saying, in my view, is that we should have a situation where we can have a careful balance. I agree with the proposal by Jude Jomo, but I don't agree with the manner in which he's thinking through it. We cannot say that voter listing will be compulsory without providing in law the strategies for it. What we had proposed in Justice and Legal Affairs is that we need to integrate the issue of issuance of IDs and voter registration, so that when you are applying for your identification card, we just give you space where you specify, I come from this constituency, this ward, and this polling station. The polling stations are regular institutions. Say for Nairobi, where you can have them in private residences for some times, and then they can change. So I can say I come from Homa Bay Town constituency, sub-county. I come from a ward called Homa Bay East Ward, from a school called Ndiru Primary School, which is my ordinary residence. And you move that way. Now, when you integrate them, then you don't have to make a law making it compulsory, so long as a Madam citizen.
The question you're asking is whether voter registration is more important than everything that we're seeing. Also remember that people are able to do so many things at the same time, even individuals, but even government or people or a country would be able to do all these things at the same time and still succeed at them if they're done right. Think about it this way. I'm seated right between two amazing lawyers here, and they will tell you that the whole constitution is premised on a principle that all sovereignty belongs to the people. Now, voter registration allows an individual to exercise their sovereignty, because it's the same constitution that says you're to express your sovereignty either directly or indirectly through elected leaders. And we have decided that we're going through a system where we express our sovereignty through our elected leaders. So it is so critical, because all decisions that will be made by leadership will affect you. So voter registration is important. And I'm liking the thinking that we can start moving towards a single ID system where an individual carries all the important information in one identification instrument, whether we are going to call it an ID. So all your details about all the details about what you get from the registrar of persons, including your ID, including your driving license, including your social status, and so on and so forth, can be housed in a single ID, and that's a place to move to.
Yes.
But we've got to know that this won't happen before we go into the elections of 2017. So as we speak right now, you can think of a voice of millions and millions of Kenyans who are not registered to vote. You remember how narrow the margin of at the elections in 2013 was. So you can imagine this is a massive voice that can be left out in a decision-making process in 2017.
But
so it is critical.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that everything stops for us to register voters.
Yes.
Everything hasn't stopped. That's what I'm saying.
Because we already have a voting population of about 15 million. Whether or not we add more, we can still go to elections and people will vote and make a decision.
Let me tell you that I don't agree with this gentleman at all. This idea that we leaders become bright during elections is something that we must, move away from, because we are lying to Kenyans. Now, when the president says that please make sure that you issue IDs to people without birth certificates, it's a wrong statement to make. Why? Because why is it that when a Kenyan is born, a birth certificate becomes so difficult to get?
But during elections, it's easy.
During election, it becomes easy. I went to one Huduma center in Makueni, where Jubilee is issuing cards for free. That birth certificate is 60 shillings. Let me tell you what we need to do as a country, so that you then progress to a place where people feel as if this becomes a civic duty. Mheshimiwa Kaluma had very drastic proposals at some point, and I like the way sometimes he thinks, very drastically, that voting becomes compulsory. Forget about listing. Voting becomes a national duty. How do you go about that? Just make sure that when Fred Ndimuli is born, the birth certificate is available to him automatically. A document that is available to you simply because you have not been born a Kenyan.
And it can't be forged.
And it cannot be forged. The minute you leave school and you're at the age of 18, you get your living certificate, an identity card, and a voter's card, if it's integrated, automatically. Again, as a national and civic duty. If it's incorporated in one document, so well and good. We had this argument in the Joint Select Committee, and CS Rotich, to his credit, when he was asked by the former commissioners that to give them 3 billion shillings for purposes of voter registration, he said, I don't understand this thing. Why can't you integrate the system between registration of persons and voters? When both institutions were before us, they were arguing, because we know the bottom line. The bottom line is that there is money at National Registration Bureau, there is entrepreneurship going on there, they don't want to let go of it. In the IEBC the same. So what is it that we need to do? Friend Ndimuli, we are talking about the wrong things. There are Kenyans who are 30 years old and do not have a birth certificate. A small piece of document that is the size of my phone is not even available. That is the problem. These documents ought to be readily available, so that then it becomes a civic duty. People actually don't even care about voting. Why? Because they don't feel as if they are Kenyans. If I have to wait for 6 months to get an identity card, if I have to travel 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers, spend 3,000 or 4,000 shillings in a county like Makueni to walk into a Huduma center to get a birth certificate worth 60 shillings, and yet I don't have food to eat. That is what I'm talking about.
So now an MP says no voters card, no bursary, surely.
That is
wrong.
The most, awkward position you can come to as a leader. For one,
public funds.
Bursary targets. I mean, all secondary students, the majority of them, let me say over 95% of them, are below the age of adulthood. So when you say they'll not access, bursary, what are you talking about? And by the way, for constituencies like the one I have the privilege to lead, bursary is mainly paid to secondary students, because university students can access these other facilities like high education loans board and others. You cannot, bring those extra legal conditions to a fund against the proper usage and purpose of that fund. That to me does not work. But let me tell you,
it's actually a violation of the law.
For us in opposition, I've told you it is not our business as leaders or as politicians to go, mobilizing voters to register. But for us as opposition, we are saying things are headed south. Things are going so wrong that if we just sit back, without, you know, capturing, you know, power and doing the right thing for the country, it will never happen.
Now let me ask you, now let's come to the voter registration itself. The exercise, the second week is actually almost ending. It's ending this weekend. That means we should be halfway done. First week only managed to net 825,000 against a target of 1.4 million voters weekly. The numbers for your region are not looking good, because you're averaging about 10% on the first week of the possible the potential voters, the ones you're targeting. 10%, do you think you'll get the numbers?
You're talking about challenges, and I don't know what you mean by my region.
I tell you.
I don't know what you mean by
the region you come from, Nyanza, because it's actually, IEBC gave numbers according to counties.
Fred,
Homa Bay, Kisumu, the numbers are 10%.
Fred, let me tell you, we are doing very well. We don't want IEBC to go telling us, you know, CORD is registering this number, Jubilee is registering this number. Those people registering are Kenyans.
Yes.
There will be a campaign period during which they would be swayed either way. Unless we are assuming if a Kikuyu registers, it's Jubilee. If a Luo registers, it is called ODM. Remember, I was saying before that in central Kenya alone, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, you know, as the CORD candidate, got over 90,000 votes at the time. That's not a small thing. You may come and say Rift Valley is Jubilee, but who told you Rift Valley is Jubilee? Jubilee is enjoying, you know, supports in patches of Rift Valley. You know, the Maasais are gone, the Tesas are gone, the Pokots, the Marakwet, the Turkana.
But you still come back and
so what we are saying, what we are saying is that we must stop, you know, ethnicizing our politics to the level of seeing somebody, you know, going to take a vote as a person who will definitely vote.
But you say that on one side, but then you say the Maasai is
let me say this thing. Let me say this thing. There are obvious challenges facing the voter registration exercise, and this is across the nation. You know, we've just discussed the issue of IDs. You cannot access, you know, this thing called, you know, voter registration as a process, you know, without IDs. You need to be asking, how easy is it for somebody in you know, Homa Bay to acquire an ID against a person in Kiambu? Once, of course, you know that, you know, there will be a problem. I can tell you, in our places, just getting, you know, these materials they use to process ID, Mutula will tell you, as political leaders, you have to buy them. Yet, you're told they are easily available there. You're told, get us photo printing papers to register people. Our women, newly married and newlywed, have still to go back to their home searching for their parents, even if, you know, those parents are dead. Where are their details?
But that should be a problem across the country.
No, it is not. You know what has been happening last year, unless we never reviewed it here, Fred, where, you know, statement is given and DCs are going door to door in particular regions of the country, registering people, yet others are just being neglected there. You know what is even happening, you know, as we speak, where, you know, the provincial administration is on Kaiseri somewhere in some part of the country, barely a week ago, saying it is your duty, and if you don't do it, we will arrest you. I can tell you at our places, the instruction is opposite. But the other challenge facing the voter registration exercise, I think, Fred, is something we have mentioned. If you see the turnout, and you think of CORD as, you know, these regions which are far-flung, the corners of the country and others, how do people in Baringo with the famine situation, you know, register? There is something that caught my attention that, you know, should bother us even more as we go forward. You know, Mutula, there are people who registered in the last mass voter registration exercise, and the continuous voter registration, you know, process is also going on. Let me tell you, all those people have not been uploaded. And IEBC is continuing to register people. In my own constituency, over 3,700 people are currently confirmed as not uploaded in the system. So you go and check whether you are registered as you believe, and you have that confirmation, you know, slip. You find you're not in the system. And IEBC has not given instructions down there in terms of what you do with such person. Most of them are still being told, check in the last week of registration, they may be uploaded in between. What if they are over-engaged in the last week? So there are challenges over. My view is that as we move forward, let us have a situation where we make it easy and possible for all Kenyans who have attained, you know, the adulthood, wherever they are, to register.
I'm sure when Kerry also involved in this voter registration mobilization drive. Are you having a similar challenge?
Not only now. Some few years back, long before I even thought I would be involved in national politics, I was in a movement that we called Vijana Tugutuke. And what we used to do as Vijana Tugutuke was to make sure that people of our generation go out and get their ID and their voter's card. Amazing, amazing activation. And I remember it was the first time that we were able to tilt the balance on Kivuitu's register, where we, for the first time in Kenya's history, had more younger Kenyans than older Kenyans on the voter register. That speaks to its success. It was very well organized, it was very well thought through, it was very well executed. 4.2 million new registered voters. So I would know a thing or two about voter registration around the country. There are obvious problems that are out there, and that's why we need to ask ourselves, before we even draw up these targets, who are we targeting? And I think we need to be realistic to ourselves and target individuals who already have their ID cards. And those individuals are already big enough a number for us to take as a target that if we registered them, we would register success. Now, if this individual already has an ID card, we need now to ask ourselves, what is stopping them from taking a voter's card? And that's where now IEBC comes in. And to my mind, the biggest challenge that IEBC has is a communication challenge. They are not speaking right to the right people. When you think about it, the people who we will be targeting are mostly individuals between 18 and 24 years. These are really young people. Is the communication that is being put out by IEBC speaking to these people? Is it in the forums that they are in? What is a young person listening to? What is a young person watching? What is a young person wanting to associate with? Is it edgy enough? Is it cool enough for me as an 18-year-old Kenyan to listen to IEBC? Or is IEBC to me a monolithic government institution that is so uncool that I don't want to associate with? And that's what IEBC needs to crack. Credit has to be given to individuals who have stepped out, whether they're in opposition or in government, and they are doing what they can in their own spheres of influence to make sure that people register. But this mandate falls squarely on IEBC, and IEBC needs to step up the way it's communicating to the target audience.
Senator, because now it appears we've left it to politicians to go out and push for this. Of course, they have something to benefit from the entire drive, but should it be that way?
No. Let me tell you, I spent 10 hours there for yesterday, and this morning I'm going again back to Makueni to do this exercise, but it gives me anxious moments because I know the effort is not going to be reciprocated in anything useful. Let me tell you why. I went to a polling station, a registration center at the border of Makueni and Machakos. It's called Kwamutesia. I found 5 cards of people who had been registered, but when they went there, they didn't find their names. So they then registered afresh. So we were left wondering, have these people actually registered? They went home with other cards, left the 5 cards there. We went to other polling stations where people found their names missing. In other cases, a name has been deleted. He had 3 names, now he has 2. So you begin to wonder whether the exercise we are engaging in now is actually useful. The second anxious moment for me is that while we want to have 6 or whatever number million registered, I'm concerned that come 8th of August 2017, we have not clearly established how that person will be identified. Jubilee has pushed this manual thing, which I disagree with completely. We have pushed for the electronic technology system where you use your thumbprint. As we speak, we don't have the technology. We are using BVRs and small laptops, which we all know we are not going to use in the next general elections because a tender for the procurement of this integrated biometric system is going to come up in February. These things are upsetting. Now look at the effort, and I always blame the executive because they're the people who are the custodians of some of these things. The executive is putting more efforts than IEBC, putting more resources. Just imagine the amount of state resource to have the president and the deputy president moving around the country in the manner they are. State resource. if that state resource and energy was put towards getting these things done properly, and I would even prefer that if the president was making those statements about IDs in Makueni, in opposition zones, forget about Jubilee, and you know, places where he can speak his mother tongue, and people, things that I don't understand. Maybe Kiaria, because it's my friend, he will tell me what Ovamaki means. The point I'm making is that this exercise, to me, appears like a zero-sum game. We are pushing a a tribal agenda, complete balkanization. That is what Kaluma is talking about. We are fanning the fires of ethnicization, the so-called tyranny numbers, which is just tribes. The Kikuyus are 5 million, the Luos are 3 million, Luyas have 2 million, Kambas have nothing, and therefore we should give the Kikuyus and Luyas, power. That sort of thing is what I'm talking about. But that is, it's true, but it's not.
Senator is known to me, and I can tell you he has a more positive outlook to life than he's presenting here. And the question we need to bring to the table right
disappointed both.
We need to let me tell you, and this is a question we need to put out there to the opposition. Is when we went to a referendum and put out a new constitution, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, we talked about institutions that we called independent.
Yes.
Now, when we look at the effort that the executive needs to put into the work of an independent commission, it only ends at the point of institutionalizing these independent commissions. And let me tell you, everyone is a witness to what effort has gone into bringing out this new IEBC, and even the new IEBC commissioners. You know what necessitated the bringing in of new commissioners when they come. But my point is this. My point is this, Senator. My point is this. If someone is preparing your meal, this is a chef, and they're preparing your meal. If you make it your business to come and test every single ingredient as it's being made, you want to taste the meal at every single minute as it is being made, chances are you're going to be tasting raw food in the process of making this food, and ultimately even the food itself won't be made to the quality you want it done. So let's it is a very good example. Let's give these independent commissions at least some leeway to do their work.
So yes, Fred, what business has the president mobilizing voters to register if IEBC is independent, as Kiari would want us to believe? I mean, what business has the president going to Masabit and ordering IDs to be given to people when the office of the registrar
it is my business to knock at my neighbor's door and ask them if they've taken up, because
what you are saying is
a patriotic
institutions are there to deal with this thing.
Yes.
And what we want is equal access to all Kenyans to facilities they should have to exercise their citizenship. And let me end by saying, Kiari, you are talking of the age for registering being between 18 and 24. That is the university and college age.
We talked about the biggest chunk of people we need to register.
Yes, correct. Yes. Now, if you look at it that way, Fred, then you want to ask, where is this university or college in Homa Bay, Nyamira, Kisii, where you would find those people to register now? They are all somewhere in Kenyatta University, in Nairobi, in Mombasa, and other places.
But you also understand,
now, I've there the fare and the facilities, and that is why I'm saying, let us create systems that would enable adult Kenyan citizens, whether they are students or wherever, to register wherever they are. I mean, what is difficult in people at a technical university in Mombasa, students there, being given a facility to indicate I'm registering for Homa Bay Town constituency, and they continue with their studies.
Weshimiwa knows that. We need to go for a break. Does not hold, because when you talk about
gentlemen, let's go for a break first. We'll come back to discuss that. Plus, we need to wrap up our news review, but not before discussing what's happening in Wiper. The party leader and the party chairman are not seeing eye to eye. I've actually seen all of the headlines where the party chairman is being asked to apologize to the party leader. Will that house hold? That when Power Breakfast returns. Let's now enjoy some music.